He's flown combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan and led the Navy's elite Blue Angels through some of the most breathtaking maneuvers in the sky. Commander Frank Weisser has lived a life defined by precision, courage, and purpose. Now he's sharing some of those experiences taught to him about leadership and resilience in a new book called Lead Solo, Learning Life's Vectors from an FA-18 Blue Angel aviator. Commander Weisser joins us now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, not a problem. Do you find yourself just sitting back and in amazement of the journey you've taken?
A little bit, actually. I'm very grateful. I would say that for sure. It's been an exciting adult experience to this point.
So I got to ask you this: what is it like to strap into a FA-18 Hornet, knowing you were at times flying just inches away from your teammates at 700 miles per hour?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we use the analogy or the reference of we don't strap into it, we strap it on. And so it's a mind change where you put this 35,000-pound airplane on your back like a backpack. You strap into this incredible airplane, and really a weapon system, right? Because for us, if you're flying as a Navy fighter pilot, it's not about flying the airplane, it's about fighting the airplane. The airplane becomes your rifle, just like a Marine would hold his rifle. Mm-hmm. The airplane is our weapon, and we fly it and we fight it. Interesting
way to put it there. All right, you described your career as a journey from precision flying to purpose living. What's the biggest vector change in your own life?
You know, I'm grateful that the book was written because I'd given a speech at the Naval Academy, and the Naval Institute Press was there and asked if I could take this speech and then make it into a digestible book, 50 or 60,000 words, not a very long read, but use the lessons I had in the speech and kind of illustrate with more stories a similar book. And so what was really beneficial for me is I had this opportunity. I was surrounded by so many incredible men and women for a career. And it was a chance to celebrate them and talk about the ways that we work together and what I learned from them. But to your point, the military has some unique ways of doing things. It's not always better, but in some cases it is. And we definitely we've to some degree mastered trust. You know, I talk a lot about high trust, the idea that it's not just trusting someone to pay you back or to be somewhere when they say they will. It's trusting someone with your life and them trusting you with their life, and not just once, but over and over and over again. Yeah. And for me, trust is like a muscle. You can get better at it by exercising it. And it's hard, but even in business, as a leader, you have to if you're going to grow as an organization, you have to trust the people underneath you. But it makes you vulnerable to do so. So as we kind of worked through some of those concepts in the book, and I intended to illustrate these lessons by using real life stories, whether that's in the cockpit of the Blue Angel Air Show or behind the scenes of Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah. How has your definition of leadership evolved from your early years of flying to where you are today?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I'd say leadership is easy to talk about. It's hard to do. And so it's really easy for anyone to look at their boss and say, oh, they should be doing this or that. But when you actually are in the seat, when you are in charge, it's always a lot more difficult than you anticipated. And so I think you need to be constantly assessing your own progress, but really the ability to admit your own mistakes, that weighs in the book fairly heavily. And the best leaders are the ones who are willing to say, I screwed that up and I made a mistake. And the Blue Angels do that better than just about any organization I've ever known, where we'll finish an air show, the entire team, not just the pilots, all of the officers will go into a room and one by one name everything they've done wrong. And in doing so, it's liberating, but it's also empowering in the sense that if we're trying to help each other grow, and I've already told you what I did wrong, now we work together to improve as individuals so that the whole group can improve. Yeah. But it takes a bit of confidence as the person in charge to raise your hand and say, I screwed that up.
Wow. Well, is that the biggest takeaway you want readers to get from the book?
I think so. I think that, you know, the sections on communication, on how you can be open about your mistakes, it takes courage to do that. I think that talking about dealing with adversity, naval aviation has a great way of dealing with adversity. And that is, before we ever get into an airplane, we've learned everything that can go wrong and what we do when it does go wrong. But in business, that doesn't really apply the same way. No, when you go into work today, you might not have thought of every single thing that might go wrong in the studio. And if it does go wrong, how you're going to adjust. And then after it does happen and you adjust to it, do you sit back down and debrief as a team and say, this is what happened, we handle it this way. We could have maybe done this a little bit better. And so I walk through how we cross that bridge as a Blue Angel team or in naval aviation, because I do think there's some really important takeaways that you can get from that.
Yeah. Did you know that this is what you were going to do with your life? Did you always know that you were going to be who you became?
Yeah. No, certainly not. I grew up in Sandy Springs and was really excited to go to the Naval Academy, but very specifically to be a Navy SEAL. And that's what that was my chosen profession as a young man, and wanted that all the way up until the day they told me I wasn't going to be able to do that, actually, for 8 or 10 years of my life, to be laser focused on one goal. And so that actually weighs heavily into the book too. I have an entire chapter about failure, and it's probably the longest chapter because I've failed so many times. But it was important to say that, my career in the Navy started in my mind as a failure. And it actually went downhill from there even pretty fast too. But the takeaway for me from that is, as I look at the people who I really respect and admire, in almost every case, they would consider themselves failures. But the difference is they didn't fail and then quit or give up. They picked themselves up. They moved forward smarter and better for having failed in the first place. And so I personally, any success I've had has been because I failed and I wasn't afraid to fail again.
You've had so much success. I got 30 seconds left. What's the flight plan for the next chapter?
That's great. I'd like to, I want to get good feedback. I want to get a good debrief on the book. I've had great feedback so far. What I'm really happy about is that all the proceeds from this book go to an incredible charity that supports men and women and families of mishap victims. So from my perspective, hopefully the book is good, but also just buying it and reading it supports men and women that serve our country.
Commander Frank Weisser, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
All right, take care.